What if the greatest American triumphs in science and space were built on a secret so dark it was hidden for decades? What if the men who helped America reach the stars once built weapons for Hitler, and their past was quietly erased in the name of victory? This is not a conspiracy theory. This is Operation Paperclip, a story so shocking, so morally tangled, that it will make you question everything you thought you knew about the end of World War II. The war is over. Berlin is burning. The world is celebrating the defeat of Nazi Germany. But in the shadows, a new race has already begun. A race not for territory, but for minds. American intelligence officers disguised in civilian clothes move through the ruins of Germany with a single mission: find the Nazi scientists before the Soviets do. The future of the world, they believe, depends on it. These are not ordinary men. They are the architects of Hitler's most terrifying weapons: V-2 rockets that rained down on London, jet engines that screamed across the sky, chemical weapons that could wipe out cities. Their hands are stained with the blood of war, their names whispered in fear. And yet, to the Americans, they are the key to a new era. If the Soviets get them first, the balance of power could shift overnight. In the dead of night, secret deals are struck, files are rewritten, war crimes are quietly ignored. The scientists are given new names, new identities, and a one-way ticket to America. Their families are brought over, their pasts erased. In exchange, they will work for the United States, building rockets, designing weapons, and pushing the boundaries of science. But at what cost? As the first V-2 rocket scientists arrive in New Mexico, American officials wrestle with a question that has no easy answer. Can you build a better future on the foundation of evil? Can you trust the men who once served your enemy to now serve your country? And what happens when the truth finally comes out? Every breakthrough, every launch, every moment of triumph is haunted by the ghosts of the past. The same men who helped put a man on the moon once built the missiles that terrorized Europe. The same hands that raised the American flag at Cape Canaveral once saluted Hitler. The line between hero and villain blurs, and the audience is left to wonder, how far would you go to win? This is not just a story of science and secrets. It's a story of moral compromise, of ambition and guilt, of a nation willing to do whatever it takes to stay ahead. It's a story that will make you question not just history, but the very meaning of right and wrong. Imagine you're an American officer standing in a bombed-out German laboratory. The air smells of chemicals and fear. You're handed a list of names: scientists, engineers, men who once wore the swastika on their sleeves. Your orders are clear: bring them to America, no questions asked. But as you look into their eyes, you can't help but wonder, are you saving your country or selling its soul? The first group of scientists is led by Wernher von Braun, the genius behind the V-2 rocket. He's charming, brilliant, and utterly unapologetic. My work is for science, he says, not for politics. But the evidence is everywhere. Photos of von Braun with Hitler, reports of forced labor in his factories, stories of death and suffering. Still, the Americans need him. The Soviets are already closing in, and time is running out. Operation Paperclip is born out of desperation and ambition. The Cold War is on the horizon, and the United States cannot afford to fall behind. The scientists are flown to secret bases in Texas and New Mexico, where they begin work on America's next generation of weapons. Their pasts are buried, their crimes forgotten. In the eyes of the government, they are no longer Nazis. They are assets. But not everyone is convinced. Some American officials protest, warning that the nation is making a deal with the devil. We are bringing war criminals into our own backyard, one general says. What does that make us? But their voices are drowned out by the roar of rockets and the promise of victory. As the months pass, the scientists settle into their new lives. They buy houses, send their children to American schools, and work long hours in secret labs. They are watched closely, their movements monitored, their mail opened. But they are also celebrated, invited to parties, given awards, praised for their genius. The line between enemy and ally grows thinner with each passing day. And all the while, the American public remains in the dark. The newspapers report on the space race, on the latest breakthroughs in rocketry and aviation. But the truth behind these achievements is hidden, locked away in classified files and whispered conversations. The men who once built weapons for Hitler are now building the future for America. But secrets have a way of coming out, and as the years go by, questions begin to surface. Who are these men really? What did they do during the war? And what price has America paid for their genius? If you're finding this story as shocking as I am, you're not alone. This is just the beginning of Operation Paperclip, a story so full of twists, secrets, and moral dilemmas that you won't want to miss what happens next. If you want to uncover more hidden pages of history, make sure you're subscribed to WW2 Hidden Pages right now, because the next chapter is even more unbelievable. The story of Operation Paperclip only grows more tangled as the months turn into years. In the quiet desert towns of New Mexico and Texas, the former Nazi scientists begin to blend into American life. They shop at local stores, attend church on Sundays, and wave to their neighbors. But behind the picket fences and polite smiles, secrets fester. The scientists know they are being watched, and the Americans know they are playing a dangerous game. Wernher von Braun, the charismatic rocket engineer, quickly becomes the face of the new American space program. He gives interviews, flashes his famous smile, and talks about the future, about rockets that will one day take men to the moon. But in the shadows, government agents keep a close eye on him and his team. They know that trust is a fragile thing, and that the past is never truly buried. The American public, meanwhile, is swept up in the excitement of the space race. Newspapers trumpet every new achievement, every successful launch. Children dream of becoming astronauts, and families gather around their televisions to watch the latest rocket soar into the sky. No one asks too many questions about where the technology came from or who is building it. The nation is united by a single goal: to beat the Soviets to the stars. But not everyone is willing to look the other way. In Washington, a handful of journalists and politicians begin to dig deeper. They file Freedom of Information Act requests, interview survivors of the Nazi regime, and piece together a story that the government would rather keep hidden. They discover evidence of war crimes, of forced labor and human suffering, of men who once swore loyalty to Hitler now working for the United States. The revelations are explosive. Headlines scream about Nazi scientists in America. Congressional hearings are called. The public is shocked, angry, and confused. How could this happen? How could the nation that fought to defeat fascism now be giving sanctuary to its architects? The government scrambles to contain the fallout. Officials argue that the scientists are essential to national security, that their knowledge is too valuable to lose. They point to the Soviets, who have their own team of former Nazi engineers working on rockets and weapons. If we don't use them, the enemy will, they say. We have no choice. But the moral questions refuse to go away. Survivors of the Holocaust and their families demand justice. Veterans who fought and bled in Europe feel betrayed. The scientists themselves are caught in the middle, haunted by their past, uncertain of their future, and always aware that their new lives are built on a foundation of lies. As the years pass, the lines between right and wrong blur even further. The scientists make incredible contributions to American science and technology. They help develop the Redstone rocket, which will one day launch the first American into space. They design missiles that become the backbone of the nation's defense. Their work is celebrated, their names entered into the history books. But the ghosts of the past are never far away. In quiet moments, the scientists remember the war, the factories filled with slave labor, the screams of the dying, the fear and the guilt. Some try to justify their actions, insisting that they were only following orders, that they had no choice. Others are racked with remorse, unable to escape the memories of what they have done. The American officials who brought them over wrestle with their own guilt. Some believe they did the right thing, that the ends justified the means. Others are haunted by doubts, by the knowledge that they made a deal with the devil. They wonder if the price of victory was too high, if the nation has lost something essential in its quest for power. And all the while, the world changes. The Cold War heats up, and the threat of nuclear annihilation looms over everything. The space race becomes a symbol of hope, a way to look beyond the horrors of the past and dream of a better future. But beneath the surface, the secrets of Operation Paperclip continue to shape the course of history. The story is filled with moments of suspense and drama, There are secret meetings in darkened rooms, coded messages sent across continents, and narrow escapes from Soviet agents. There are scientists who try to defect, who fear that their new masters are no better than the old. There are American officials who risk their careers and their lives to expose the truth. And through it all, the question remains: can a nation built on freedom and justice afford to compromise its values in the name of survival? Can the pursuit of knowledge ever justify the embrace of evil? Or are some lines simply too dangerous to cross? If you're still watching, you're already part of a rare group, someone who refuses to accept easy answers, who wants to know the truth behind the headlines. That's exactly why you belong here, with us, on WW2 Hidden Pages. We dig deeper, we ask the hard questions, and we bring you the stories that others are afraid to tell. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. The next chapter of Operation Paperclip is even more shocking, and you won't want to miss it. As the 1950s dawned, America was a nation caught between pride and paranoia. The world watched as the United States and the Soviet Union raced to conquer the skies, each desperate to prove their technological and ideological superiority. In the heart of this Cold War, the men of Operation Paperclip became both heroes and shadows, celebrated for their genius, yet always haunted by the secrets they carried. Wernher von Braun, now a household name, stood at the forefront of America's space ambitions. He appeared on television, gave lectures at universities, and inspired a generation of young Americans to dream of the stars. His German accent and charming smile became symbols of the new frontier. But for those who looked closer, the contradictions were impossible to ignore. Here was a man who had once designed weapons of terror for Hitler, now leading the charge to put an American on the moon. The American government, eager to maintain its edge over the Soviets, doubled down on its investment in the former Nazi scientists. New laboratories sprang up across the country, filled with men whose pasts had been carefully scrubbed from the record. The Redstone Arsenal in Alabama became the epicenter of rocket development, a place where the future was being built by men with ghosts in their closets. Yet, the truth could not be hidden forever. Investigative journalists, driven by a sense of justice, continued to dig. Survivors of the Nazi regime now living in America recognized faces in newspaper photos and television broadcasts. Whispers grew louder. Protests erupted outside government buildings. The question on everyone's lips: how could America, the land of the free, become a sanctuary for men who had served the Third Reich? Inside the labs and offices, the scientists themselves felt the pressure. Some, like von Braun, embraced their new identities, focusing on the work and avoiding questions about the past. Others struggled with guilt and isolation, unable to reconcile their achievements with the memories of war. A few tried to atone, quietly supporting charities for Holocaust survivors or speaking out against totalitarianism. But for most, the only option was silence. The American officials who had orchestrated Operation Paperclip faced their own reckoning. Congressional hearings grew more intense. Documents were leaked, revealing the extent of the government's cover-up. The public, once enthralled by the promise of space exploration, now demanded answers. Was the price of progress too high? Had America sacrificed its soul for the sake of victory? In the midst of this turmoil, the space race reached its fever pitch. The Soviets launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, sending shockwaves through the United States. Suddenly, the need for scientific talent became even more urgent. The former Nazi scientists were thrust into the spotlight, their expertise now seen as essential to national survival. The government issued statements defending its actions, insisting that the ends justified the means. But the moral questions refused to go away. In living rooms across America, families debated the ethics of Operation Paperclip. Teachers struggled to explain the contradictions to their students. Veterans who had fought in Europe wrote letters to the editor, expressing their outrage and disappointment. The nation was divided, torn between admiration for the scientists' achievements and horror at their pasts. For the scientists, the pressure was relentless. They worked long hours, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. They designed rockets that would carry satellites, and eventually humans, into space. They trained a new generation of American engineers, passing on their knowledge and experience. But at night, when the labs were quiet and the world outside was dark. The memories returned. The faces of the dead, the screams of the dying, the knowledge that their hands had built both dreams and nightmares. The story of Operation Paperclip is not just a tale of science and secrets. It is a story of identity, of redemption and regret, of a nation struggling to define itself in a world where the lines between good and evil are never clear. It is a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, to ask hard questions, and to look beyond the surface. And yet, even as the controversy raged, the work continued. The Apollo program was born, a bold vision to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Von Braun and his team became the architects of this dream, designing the Saturn V rocket that would carry Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the lunar surface. The world watched in awe as America achieved the impossible, planting its flag on the Sea of Tranquility. But even in that moment of triumph, the shadows lingered. The world celebrated the achievement, but few knew the full story of how it had come to be. The men who stood in the control room, cheering as the rocket soared into the sky, carried with them the weight of history, a history that could never be erased. If you're still with us, you're not just a viewer, you're a seeker of truth, someone who refuses to accept easy answers. That's what makes the WW2 Hidden Pages community so special. We don't just tell stories, we uncover the secrets, the dilemmas, and the hidden costs of history. If you haven't already, subscribe now and join a family of thinkers, questioners, and explorers. The final chapter of Operation Paperclip is coming, and it's the most powerful yet. The moon landing in 1969 was a moment that defined a generation. Millions of Americans watched in awe as Neil Armstrong took his first steps on the lunar surface, uttering words that would echo through history. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. The world celebrated, and the United States claimed victory in the space race. But behind the scenes, the legacy of Operation Paperclip lingered, casting a long and complicated shadow over this triumph. Wernher von Braun, the former Nazi scientist turned American hero, stood at the heart of NASA's greatest achievement. His Saturn V rocket had made the impossible possible. Yet, for those who knew the full story, the moment was bittersweet. The same mind that had engineered the V-2 rockets that terrorized Europe had now propelled humanity to the stars. The line between redemption and complicity blurred, and the question remained: can a man's past ever truly be left behind? As the years passed, the truth about Operation Paperclip slowly emerged from the darkness. Journalists, historians, and survivors continued to dig, uncovering documents, testimonies, and photographs that revealed the full extent of the program. The American public, once content to celebrate the victories, now faced uncomfortable questions about the cost of progress. Was it worth it? Could the ends ever justify the means? For the scientists themselves, the reckoning was personal. Some, like von Braun, embraced their new identities, becoming symbols of American ingenuity and ambition. Others struggled with guilt and regret, haunted by memories of the war and the knowledge that their work had come at a terrible price. A few tried to make amends, speaking out against totalitarianism, supporting causes for peace, or quietly helping the victims of the regime they had once served. The debate over Operation Paperclip continues to this day. Some argue that the program was a necessary evil, a pragmatic response to the realities of the Cold War. Without the expertise of the former Nazi scientists, they say, America might never have reached the moon or developed the technologies that now define modern life. Others insist that the nation compromised its values, sacrificing justice and morality for the sake of victory. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. What cannot be denied is the impact Operation Paperclip had on the world. The rockets, missiles, and technologies developed by these scientists changed the course of history. They shaped the outcome of the Cold War, fueled the arms race, and opened the door to space exploration. But they also forced America to confront the darkest corners of its own soul, to ask what it truly means to be a nation built on freedom, justice, and the rule of law. As we look back on this hidden chapter of history, we are left with more questions than answers. Can a nation ever truly escape the consequences of its choices? Can the pursuit of greatness ever justify the embrace of evil? And what does it mean to be a hero in a world where the lines between right and wrong are so easily blurred? The story of Operation Paperclip is a story of ambition and compromise, of triumph and tragedy, of men who built both nightmares and dreams. It is a story that challenges us to think deeply, to question what we are told, and to seek out the hidden pages of history that others would rather forget. If you've made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person we created WW2 Hidden Pages for. You're not satisfied with simple answers or easy stories. You want to know the truth, to explore the shadows, to understand the real cost of the world we live in. That's why you belong here, with us, a community of seekers, thinkers, and explorers. So, what do you think? Was Operation Paperclip a necessary step in America's rise to greatness, or a betrayal of everything the nation stands for? Can we ever truly separate the achievements of science from the sins of the past? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters, and your questions help us uncover even more hidden stories. If you found this story as gripping and thought-provoking as we did, don't forget to subscribe to WW2 Hidden Pages. We bring you the untold, the controversial, and the forgotten stories of World War II and beyond. Stories that will challenge your assumptions and open your eyes to the complexities of history. And if you're hungry for more, check out our playlist of hidden WW2 stories, each one more unbelievable than the last. From secret missions to unsung heroes, from moral dilemmas to moments of triumph, we're here to bring you the history that textbooks leave out. As we close the book on Operation Paperclip, remember, history is never as simple as it seems. The truth is messy, complicated, and often uncomfortable. But it is only by facing that truth, by reading the hidden pages, that we can hope to understand the world and ourselves. Thank you for watching, for thinking, and for being part of this journey. Stay curious, stay questioning, and keep searching for the stories that matter. This is WW2 Hidden Pages, where history's secrets come to life.